We're on the road with Mickey, we're gonna have some fun. Regardless of the rain or sun, our trip has just begun. So buckle up, let's go, we're about to start the show. And maybe if you like us, you'll see where else we'll go.
Hey everyone, I'm Mike, and she's Sophie,
And she's Brenda.
Hi, everyone.
and he's Grogu. And you know what? Grogu says, I am so awesome, I don't even need any words.
I mean, it's true.
It
It is
is.
true.
And we are on the road with Mickey. This is episode 222 for June 3rd, 2024. And today we have a topic show topic change, something like that. The topic this week is remembering the legends, the Sherman Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
I only have one piece of cheddar because it ties directly into our topic this week. So I am going to start us off with that. And then we're going to do a fairly normal show, listener feedback from quick service, and then our topic, and then history, and stump the Soph and all that. But first, let's get into the real news. So the big story this week, and the reason for the change in topic, is the passing of Richard Sherman at the age of 95. Mr. Sherman is one of a songwriting duo, the Sherman Brothers, along with his brother Robert, that have given millions of fans enjoyable music to listen to for decades. Today, we remember two of the best Disney legends out there, and this episode is a tribute from our hearts and yours to the Sherman family in their time of grief.
Yeah.
So, before
A
we
little bit of a heavy topic this week. Just a
yeah,
little.
yeah, it is. Um, Before we get into that, I do want to make sure that we make note of our listener feedback for our quick service episode last week. And we have two things that people commented on in the Facebook group. And that Facebook group is On the Road with Mickey Group. And you can find it in the show notes. We have links to the group um, as well as the page and all that. But but you can also search us out on Facebook. So listener feedback number one is John, who subscribes to the Mike Ellis idea of coming up with five and only five restaurants
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because he said this that his favorite quick service restaurants are Earl's Sandwich, Casey's Corner, Pecos Bills, and most of the kiosks during any of the Epcot festivals, and Columbia Harbor House. At Animal Kingdom, he loves the Flame Tree Barbecue and Pete Safari, maybe Restaurantosaurus. Hollywood Studios, he likes ABC Commissary and Pizza Rizzo. I know that this is more than five, but wanted to list what I liked. And you know what, John? You and I kindred spirits, buddy, because I had eight. So there you go.
No wrong answers at Disney.
There is
And
no
yeah,
wrong answer.
no
Exactly.
wrong answers.
All right. And then Chandler had this to add to the list that our friend Cheryl, who is a pixie, totally agrees with. And here's what he wrote: Satuli's Cantina, hands down a must in all caps. It's a must go to whenever we're in his favorite park. I didn't
Great
know
choice.
anyone had a favorite park besides the Magic Kingdom. Well, Sophie's favorite park is Epcot. So,
It varies from month to month, year to year, day to day.
That's
okay.
true.
All right. So thank you so much guys for your feedback. We appreciate it and love it. We love getting feedback, you know.
Hmm.
And we do have some listener feedback for our feature topic that we're going to share a little bit down the road, just a little bit. But now it is time to get into that feature topic. So we're remembering the legends of the Sherman Brothers. And Brenda, you have the honor of starting us off.
Oh, thank you. Well, when I think about the Sherman Brothers, I always think of my favorite song by the Sherman Brothers, which is probably the same for most people or a lot of people. And that's Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins. And I have a lot of books about Walt, so I have some information on, when they wrote the song and things like that. I just thought I'd share today, in case there's other people who haven't heard about it.
Yeah.
So when Walt decided that Mary Poppins would be a musical, I'm just reading this because there's no way I can memorize it. But when Walt decided Mary Poppins would be a musical, the story had to be structured around the music. So Walt placed the project in the hands of his composers, Richard and Robert Sherman. He gave them a copy of the book and said, "My wife and daughters think this would be a great movie. Read it and tell me what you think." The Sherman Brothers read the book cover to cover, then went to the table of contents and circled 6 books of the 12 chapters. They believed those 6 chapters formed the core of a strong plot. When they showed Walt the chapters they had circled, Walt smiled, opened his own copy of the book, and showed it to them. Walt had circled the same 6 chapters.
Nice.
Now Walt
Oh,
had a
wow.
storyline. So the first song that they had written for the Mary Poppins movie was Feed the Birds, and the second was the first they did for him was Feed the Birds. The second was Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
How do you spell
And
that?
exactly.
I will figure out how to spell it 1 second.
It's a winner. So Walt had put Richard and Robert Sherman together with Don DeGrady, one of the studio's top story artists. Walt wanted to encourage the creative synergy between his composers and his story man, and it worked. The Sherman Brothers music inspired DeGrady as he created the storyboards, and his storyboards inspired the Shermans to write more music.
Nice.
When asked what it was like to work with Walt on Mary Poppins, Richard Sherman said, "Walt believed in teamwork. We all chipped in and felt we were part of something special. We were proud to be on Walt's team, and this made us wanted to make Mary Poppins work. We all had our own little bailiwicks, but we felt free to make suggestions to each other and learn from each other." And Richard Sherman also said Walt Disney was magical. He would give you a challenge and say, "I know you can do this." It was electric to be around him.
Nice.
So in talking about Feed the Birds, this is what was said in one of my books, that when Walt first heard Feed the Birds, he declared, "This song will replace Brahms' lullaby," and he cried every time he heard it. So if you know the story about Fridays in the office, or if you don't, I'll read it. During the last year or two of Walt Disney's life, he'd stop by the Sherman Brothers office at the close of every Friday. We had our own little private ceremony. He would ask us what we were working on, and we'd tell him. Then he'd say, "Play the song, Richard," and I knew what song he meant. I'd play Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins. Walt would look out the north window of his office while I played the song, and when it was over, he'd say, "Yep, that's what it's all about. Have a good weekend, boys." And with that, he'd send us home. Walt understood what Bob and I were saying through that song, and I think that's why it became his favorite song. It was the first song we wrote for the picture, our first inspiration after we read the Bird Woman chapter of the book. It was the song we played for Walt at our first story meeting, and it was the last song we played for him. When we wrote it, we knew it was the metaphor for the whole picture. It's a song about the bird woman who sells breadcrumbs in front of St. Paul's Cathedral. The old woman says, "Feed the birds, tuppence a bag." That's the theme of the picture. It doesn't take much. Even after Walt left us, I continued to play the song every Friday afternoon in his honor. It was a very personal thing for me. I felt his presence. On Walt's 100th birthday, they had a big celebration in the middle of Disneyland. I was there and I spoke about Walt. They had a piano and they said, "Would you sing Feed the Birds?" I sang it and I choked up, but I got through it. As I was singing, a beautiful gray dove flew right by me and then up into the sky. Don't tell me there is no God in heaven.
Oh,
Yeah.
So sweet.
Yeah.
They had such a strong connection.
very strong connection.
Yep.
Mhm.
They were very talented.
Yeah.
Yep. And after Walt died, the Robert Sherman said, "To me, Walt is still alive. He will never die." His brother Richard told me how playing the song Feed the Birds always makes him feel that Walt is close by. I feel his presence, Richard told me.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was I think that was their strongest. I think in my opinion, I don't know. I
Mm.
think that was their strongest connection because that was like the foundational start to their relationship and that was also their final
Yeah.
meeting.
And I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I just love these stories. Can't
Yeah.
get enough can't get enough of reading
Mhm.
about these stories.
All right. Well, do you want to continue on with your thoughts, Brenda, or do you want to come back and add some more a little bit later?
I think if you want to go ahead and we can come back to
Okay. All right. Well,
All
you
right.
know, um, I'm going to go next. And I
Mhm.
do, of course, when it comes to a favorite song of the Sherman Brothers, I can't choose just one. I
Mm-mm.
mean, I got a whole album, the Sherman Brothers soundtrack, that Sophie and I know the words to every single song on that album.
Almost every single song. We would
Yeah,
listen to it back and forth when
over
we
and
were
over
drive
again.
when we were
Yep.
driving in the car, oftentimes to Disney. We would just let it repeat itself because there are so many songs on that album that
Yeah.
like you can never get tired of hearing them.
Yeah. So I did choose two, and like Brenda and so many others, Feed the Birds, Tuppence a Bag is one of those two. So I'm not going to go into it a whole lot. Um, but the second song I think I like perhaps even better, and that's Let's Go Fly a Kite.
Mm.
And I love that song because it reminds us to not take life so seriously. You got to remember that even though you're in the middle of work, there has to be all caps, has to be time for play. And
yeah.
in finding that time to play, you may just notice that your troubles get left behind a little bit, even if it's just for a little while, you know? And what's really cool to me is in the movie, he 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 quits his job. He says, "I'm done.
Yeah.
You know what?
Mhm.
My family means more than this job." And he quits his job. He comes home and they find the kite, they fix the kite, and they go fly the kite. And he takes his kids to go fly the kite.
Yeah.
And it's just
Great scene.
it's just an incredible moment in that whole movie.
Yeah.
And when Saving Mr. Banks came out, and I love the point in the movie. I saw it on YouTube yesterday, so it's still fresh in my mind.
Mhm.
But there's the point in the movie where um, Travers is in the studio or in the office with them, and they have the piano, and they start playing "Let's Go Fly a Kite," and you can see she's been so straight laced and so serious this whole time. You can see where her feet start to move, and in the movie, she dances she dances with Don, the guy that you were talking about,
Yeah.
the storyboard artist. And and I don't know how much of that was embellishment, if that really happened in real life or if it was just for the movie, but it really did kind of open it up and show that there's a side that's caring, and this song brought it out, you know. And so when Saving Mr. Banks came out, they in London at the Odeon Theater, outside the Odeon Theater, they set up a sing along, and it just kind of grew out. I'm certain it was planned and everything like that, but it kind of expanded beyond just the actors. They pushed a piano out of the theater into the middle of London, right out in front of the theater, and he started playing the song, and it's on YouTube, and I posted in the show notes the listening, and you see how there's people there to begin with, but then you see the crowd just swells and everyone is
I love
singing
it.
along, and it is an absolutely fantastic point in memory, and it's so cool to just see how music music can just totally change things and can bring people together that have no commonality except that they hear a great song and they sing along with whomever they're with, you know? And it's just a fantastic thing to think about, and to realize that you're not that different from your neighbor, whoever that neighbor is. You're not that different, and there are things that join us all together. And
Yeah.
so that's the cool legacy of the Sherman Brothers, is that even though they are gone, they live on in their music, and their family
Yeah.
can take such incredible pride and comfort in knowing that their dads and their family, their loved ones, will never be forgotten.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have one more thing, but I'll save it for a little bit later.
Yeah.
Sophie, is there something you want to add?
Well, I think everyone knows and then some how much we all love the Sherman Brothers music. And going back to the album that you
Mhm.
were talking about at the beginning of yours, it's hard to gather my thoughts right now. I'm a little bit distracted today, but I do remember, again, going back to what I was saying, that was one of the albums that we would play in the car when we were driving down to Florida, because Florida is a very long trip. It is 10 plus hours of driving.
Yeah.
And so we need good long soundtracks to keep us occupied during that time. Most of the time we'll be listening to like Christian radios and stuff, but at some point in Georgia or whatnot, the Christian radios don't work anymore because they're based in South Carolina and North Carolina and whatnot, and we don't know the Georgia and the Florida ones. So we just switch to what we have on the phone that's connected to the car. And the Sherman Brothers is one of the longest albums that we have, right up there with, I think, John Denver.
Yeah.
But we never shuffle our albums. We always play them in order. And
Mhm.
so, without fail, the first song that we hear when we put on that album is going to be Tall Paul. And it's not a song that I'm familiar with by any means, but I know the words to it and whatnot. And Daddy actually told me a couple days ago that Tall Paul was the first song that the Sherman Brothers wrote that garnered a whole bunch of success. It was like at the top of the charts for, what was it, weeks, months?
It made it, I don't know how long, but it was the first song that really put them on the map, and it made it
Mhm.
all the way up to number 7 on the charts
Yeah.
Nice.
for a song that is all of like a minute and a half, 2 minutes long, and it
Yeah.
just took off, and it's Annette Funicello singing it, and it's
Mhm.
so good. It is so good.
It's a good song, and
It's just upbeat, you know? That's what their
yeah.
music was.
Right.
It was upbeat.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
And the past few days, I've been actually dog walking for one of our neighbors. The dog's name is Cordelia. It's kind of relevant, but not really relevant. And the point is, when I'm alone, because I take her to the park that's near our house, and in that park I can't help but notice there's this nature trail that we walk on, and I look through the tree lines and I find these structures made out of fallen branches and fallen trees and whatnot, and it looks exactly like the hut that Eeyore the donkey lives in the 100 Acre Wood. And I'm like, that's the 100 Acre Wood right there. And
there
it
you
gets me
go.
singing it.
Ah,
And then that's another song that the Sherman Brothers wrote. And it just like, this is the Sherman Brothers. And I'll start singing all the songs that I know from the album to myself while I'm walking Cordelia and whatnot. And it's fun.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking online um just before we came on, and there's a Disney Wiki page. It's like a fandom page or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Uh-huh.
And the Sherman Brothers songs, I was counting out loud. Brenda's like, "What are you counting?" And I was counting to myself, but it was like their songs are represented in, I think it was 22 different Disney productions.
Wow.
And a lot of them are Winnie the Pooh and
Mm-hmm.
spin-offs of Winnie the Pooh, you know, whether it's just like a movie for video or whatever,
Yeah.
um, but still that's
Like
quite
the
an
Tigger song, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out
exact.
to my BFF.
Yep,
Yep.
yep,
And of course, Mary Poppins as well, and a bunch of other not
yeah,
quite so well known Disney movies,
right.
but they're all hidden gems. They really are.
They are, and that's we were talking about it. How the songs take us to a place that maybe we've forgotten, you know, or maybe we, depending on your generation, maybe you never knew. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
was telling Brenda about On the Front Porch, which is a song written for the Disney movie Summer Magic in the early 60s, I think it was. And the song is sung by Burl Ives of the Christmas, um what is it? Santa Claus is coming to town, or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He narrated that. I mean, he's so
Yeah.
well known. But
Mm-hmm.
I thought
anyway,
he did Frosty the Snowman because he was
Frosty the
Yeah.
yeah,
Snowman. Yep.
I
Yep.
think he did all three of them.
Yeah, I think he might
man,
have. But
he was not he was neat. I
yeah.
don't know much about him, but I remember him for a while. But
Mm-hmm.
And he sings this song, and it's about sitting on the front porch with the girl that he loves, and just
Oh, I
chilling.
loved that song.
Yeah, and it's such a good song. And it's what's really neat is um that as we look through these songs, you start to see the movies they're from, and you get an interest to maybe see what the movie was about, and if the movie was any good. So it
Mm-hmm.
almost recaptures and continues on that legacy and that those memories that you have of the songs that we know, and a lot of them are from movies we've never seen. Sophie
Yeah.
and I, anyway.
oh
And
yeah, there's a
so
lot of movies. Yeah.
it's just kind of neat how their ability to write songs could take you to a place where you didn't even know you needed to go, you know.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to add right now, Sophie?
No, I think I'm good for now.
Okay. Brenda, you want to continue on with your list of memories?
Yes, I will pop over to the park
Okay.
because I know for us the absolute ride we have to do every time we go to Magic Kingdom is
Carousel of Progress.
that's right. There's a great big beautiful tomorrow. They wrote that song, which is like wonderful. Just wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. I read a funny story about this, which has nothing to do with the Sherman Brothers, but I thought I'd share it because I thought it was funny. Um, so when they were working on making the Carousel of Progress, Walt, he was there all the time checking on the progress and seeing how it was going and everything.
Mhm.
And when in the scene where the electricity goes off,
It gets so dark.
yeah, they stopped the audio animatronic figure, and he's like, why is he stopping? And they're like, well, because they lose electricity. And he said, well, when you lose electricity, do you stop moving? And I thought that was just funny because
That is
I
funny.
didn't know they did that, and I thought that was interesting. Thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But aside from there's a great big beautiful tomorrow, of course, is the theme for Walt's attraction. It's a small world, and of course, the Sherman Brothers wrote that song, and I thought I would share a little bit of background on that as well, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. Well, when they were getting ready for the World's Fair, Walt, in Walt's mind, the boat ride he was creating was the perfect way to showcase the different cultures of children around the world, a clear nod to the work of UNICEF and the 1964-65 fair's theme of peace through understanding. Walt knew that he needed to create a very special song, something that really connected with the child's story. And so the brothers went to work, the Sherman Brothers. Walt explained to Richard and Robert that it's a small world after all. The throwaway comment got them to thinking, and slowly a heartfelt song named It's a Small World was penned. It's a Small World was installed in Disneyland in 1966. The attraction is now featured at 5 Disney parks on 3 continents: Disneyland Park, the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, Tokyo Disneyland, Disneyland Paris, and Hong Kong Disneyland. But behind the smiling audio animatronic figures and the attraction's seemingly simple theme song lies an unwavering central focus on tolerance, empathy, and kindness. Written a short time after the Cuban Missile Crisis, the lyrics describe a world of hope and a world of fears before urging listeners to remember that there's so much that we share. Richard Sherman described a simple, simple child's prayer to respect each other and to love each other. That's what we're saying without saying those words. It's a Small World is Walt's reminder for guests around the world to remember the things we have in common, as Richard Sherman says. We all share these things, so let's learn and live together. He was such a sweet man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So sweet.
Absolutely was.
Very sweet.
Yeah.
Very sweet man.
And he said, I read online that he had said that It's a Small World was to him was a prayer for peace.
That's right. Yeah, and they talked too about how sweet and humble a person Walt Disney was, that he was someone they were so blessed to have been able to have in their life. And I know he felt the exact same way about them.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. All right. Well, I am taking us to the park as well.
Oh,
Sophie,
yay.
I don't know. Let's see if Sophie remembers the story. Um, we were fortunate enough to be able to go to Disneyland for this diamond anniversary, the 60th anniversary of Disneyland. And so we were there on July 17th, 2015, and we were there with Steph and Shane and baby Lindsay, who was still growing in Stephanie's belly.
Oh,
So she got to go before she even knew what Disney was. But anyway, we were in line for Peter Pan, and um and we were just waiting our turn for us to get on, and I was just kind of looking around, and Shane tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned to him, and he pointed, and I looked, and it was Richard Sherman walking by like 5 feet, maybe 10 feet from us, just walking through the parks. And I was like, I was like, as I put in my notes, I was gobsmacked. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't say anything. I didn't think to take a picture. I didn't think to jump out of line and go up and shake his hand. I didn't think to do anything. And eventually, I think Shane closed my mouth so that I wouldn't get bugs flying in or something. It was like I was just like blown away that there's Richard Sherman
yeah.
right by.
There's one of those moments where you look back and you're like, dang it!
Exactly. Exactly. But it's okay. I
Yeah.
have that moment. It lives in here.
Mhm.
Even when it's forgotten out of there, it'll still live in here. So,
I had absolutely no recollection of that memory, Daddy.
okay. I couldn't remember,
Oh,
but that's
nope.
okay. That's
No
okay.
recollection of it whatsoever. But I will say I'm probably glad that you were in fact too stunned to move because he is still a man. He was probably trying to enjoy his day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And if I had gone over there, I probably would have been kicked out of the park. He'd be like calling security, security.
No way. You do not look like a threat, Mike. But you may have started a crowd. You may have,
That's
made a
true.
contagion of people, which would have really disrupted his day.
Yeah.
That's true.
So good job, Daddy. You did what you did, and I'm proud of you for it.
Thank you,
And I'm
honey.
so
Thank
glad
you.
you have that memory.
Yeah, I am
Wonderful.
too. It's just really cool to think about, and you don't. I don't anyway. I mean, maybe they're all over the place and I just don't notice. But I don't ever remember seeing celebrities at Disney World, so I don't think I ever looking for them there, and that's probably why I didn't even notice him there because I don't think of celebrities being at Disneyland. But obviously, it's their park too.
Well,
Yeah.
and
So
that's where a lot of them live in California. So yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's a great story. Yeah,
that's my Richard Sherman story.
I love it.
So, Sophie, do you have anything else you want to add?
Not really.
Okay, that's all right. Um, what I do have though is just a little bit of listener feedback.
Yay.
Okay.
So I posted in the On the Road with Mickey group um, that we were changing the topic and why, and I had Kim, Chris, Chandler, Patty, Teresa, and Kate loved that we made this topic our tribute the topic for this week. So, and in addition, um, we had two comments. One from Sheila Sophie,
Mhm.
and she wrote, "Just like Walt liked, I love Feed the Birds." So she's on she is not the only one, obviously. Brenda, myself, there's a whole world of people that love Feed the Birds from Mary
That's right.
Poppins.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Oh
then
yeah.
Chandler also had this tribute in the group, and he said, "No matter the interview, no matter the question, his voice was always full of joy. The stories I've heard from other friends who actually got to meet him make me think he wanted to be your friend from the moment he met you. That's
Oh,
the kind of person I want to be."
that's
Chandler,
so sweet.
I kind of feel like you're already that person. So thank
I
you,
kind of
Chandler.
do too. And
Thank
if
you
you
for your
don't mind,
comment.
could I read just one comment I got on my page that was
Yeah,
separate? This is
absolutely.
from my friend Sandra, and she commented, "Oh, Richard, we are going to miss your genius, your smile, and the genuinely kind man so many of us knew through your music while growing up. I know you and Robert are eagerly catching up right now. I imagine Composer's Corner in Heaven is a little more lively right now, thinking of your family at this time." I thought that was extremely sweet, so I wanted to share that too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that, my friends, unless there's anything else we need to add, that is our feature topic. That is our tribute to Richard Sherman and his brother Robert and the Sherman Brothers as a songwriting duo and everything that they meant and mean for Disney and for us as listeners and fans. And like I said, we are praying for their family in their time of grief,
Yes.
and we're remembering that for us, they were musicians and wonderful people that we knew through their music and their movies. But to them, their dad, their
Yes.
grandpa, their husband, you know,
Yeah.
uncle, and so on. So that's what we need to remember. So
Yep. And we give thanks for them. We sure
we
do.
do. We sure do. All right.
Yeah.
So that takes us to this day in Disney history.
And I have actually a very special bit of Disney history.
Yes.
The
Go ahead,
year
Sophie.
is 1964. Let's see if Aunt Brenda can guess what this is. June 3rd, a Miss Brenda Mylutin is
Militant.
born in Galveston, Texas. She will grow up to become one of the best pixie travel agents of all time, right up there with a Mr. Mike Ellis, and will also become the show host of a very popular, very successful podcast called On the Road with Mickey. Happy birthday, Aunt Brenda.
Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yep, this is what 60 looks like, people.
60 looks awesome.
Between you and me, you look more like 40.
Exactly.
Aw, you're so sweet. That's one of the many thousands of reasons I love you so much.
I love you too, Aunt Brenda. Happy
Happy
birthday
birthday.
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Aunt Brenda. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. You're so
And
sweet.
many more.
Let's hope.
There we go. Oh, yeah. Way many more.
Great
Many more.
job,
Thank
Sophie.
y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, we've had a very interesting topic, as we
Mm,
all know. So, I don't think this will be a hard stump to Soph.
yeah.
Well, are they really hard to stump the Soph? I mean,
No,
you can't
it's
do it.
I can't do it. But this character, Sophie,
Mm-hmm.
is considered to be very wise.
Okay.
And this character, when some of his friends have problems like losing a tail or stuck in a door,
Owl.
no, this character usually has an idea to solve the problem.
Christopher Robin.
That's right. And when things turn out just right, he's always ready to celebrate with a parade or a party.
Yeah.
Christopher Robin, I picked him specifically because of Richard Sherman and Robert Sherman and their work with Winnie the Pooh. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that is our Who's Who character. Good job, Sophie. I knew you'd get it.
Yes. Yes.
You were going easy on me this time, Daddy.
Very
Well,
sweet. I
I
was thinking
wanted
the
it.
owl too.
I wanted it to be specifically related to the Sherman Brothers. So,
Yeah.
That is great.
all right. Well, that takes us to a little bit of Walt.
Okay, well, this is a quote that reminds me of Walt and the Sherman Brothers. But before I read it, there was a there was a comment, not on our pages, but on another page across the universe, with a comment by someone named Paul Klein. We don't know who he is, but what he said to me goes with this quote. And what he said was, the only thing that matters in life is if what you do influences others after you pass. Richard and his brother were lucky enough to have that kind of job where their music will be heard by millions way after their death. Imagine influencing a child to embrace kindness from the music you left behind. It is the most impressive thing to do with your few days on this planet. Thank you, Richard, for the years of music to be watched by generations to come. And the quote that I have for you from Walt is, think beyond your lifetime if you want to accomplish something truly worthwhile.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, today is a perfect example of why. But even if today wasn't a tribute for the Sherman Brothers, it's also a quote that we can live on for
Exactly.
the rest of our lives and think about your legacy you're leaving behind, you know,
Yeah.
and what that legacy will be. Because I think for most of us there will be a legacy, whether it's a good one or a bad one. There will be a legacy. And so it's up to us to determine what that legacy is going to be. So,
Yep. And I like that we have this platform to share.
Yeah.
This is part of all of our legacy is sharing Walt, our love of Walt, our love of Disney with anyone who will listen.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And I thank you both for joining me on this journey because
I
it's
thank you.
it's an incredible journey that
Mhm.
it all started because Sophie was going off to school and
Yep.
it continues and it's just incredible that we're able to do this. So,
It is. It's such a wonderful gift.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my friends, that wraps up our tribute show to Richard Sherman and the Sherman Brothers. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Um, you know, there is a saying that my friends over at WDW Radio say, and it's called Lou Mangello penned it, and it's choose the good. And I love that. And I don't really say it on here because WDW Radio is a
Another
podcast just
podcast.
like us.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely perfectly stated. Choose the good. Figure out what that is, but choose the good and live your life so that others can see the good in you. And that's what the Sherman Brothers did for us. They showed us how we can live life to the good and be that kind of source that others will look up to.
Be the
So
light.
yeah. So have a great week, everybody.
Yeah.
If you're having a tough day, I hope someone smiles and makes your day a little bit better. If someone else is having a rough day, I hope you smile and make their day better.
Yeah.
You know, and just remember that we're all in this together. And as they said, and we say so often, it is a small world after all.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
All right.
I'm Mike. That's Sophie. She's Brenda. And he's Grogu. And we will see you on
the
the
road.
road.
bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.